Good afternoon. My name is Michael Eaton, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Collegiate Conference Association, sponsor of the National Model United Nations. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 2013 closing ceremonies. On behalf of the NCCA Board, I would like to thank all of you for your hard work this week and congratulate you on your accomplishments. It also gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker today. Peter Launsky-Tieffenthal has been Undersecretary General for Communications and Public Information since August of 2012. He is responsible for the work of the United Nations Department of Public Information. Between 2007 and 2012, Mr. Launsky-Tieffenthal served as spokesman and head of the Department for Communication and Information of the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs. He spent nearly 30 years within the Austrian Foreign Service, including stints in Asia, North America, and the Middle East, with responsibilities ranging from public diplomacy and development cooperation to press and information. He has held senior leadership positions in which he was responsible for formulating communication insights and strategies, including the extensive use of modern media tools and crisis management techniques. Please join me in welcoming the Undersecretary General.
Good afternoon. It's great. We are so happy to have you here. One can feel your energy, and it's great the way you are bringing this room, this very historic room, alive through your youth and your energy. And we very much hope that the days that you've spent here in New York were great, not just from the point of view of learning about the UN, but also of getting a glimpse of the city, even though I understand from some of your colleagues that you spent not just days but nights working on and learning about the United Nations. We would like to thank you that you've shown so much interest in the work of the UN and dedicated so much time. And we request you to go out there into the world and help us to tell the story that the United Nations write on a day-to-day basis to improve the life of people in need around this globe. I think it's a story worth telling, and there are no better ambassadors than you to help us tell the story and share these stories with the world. You are a very esteemed company. As some of you may know, the Secretary General himself is an alumnus of the Model United Nations program, and he's asked me to send you his greetings. He very much regrets that he cannot be here with you himself. I was very impressed when I looked at your program, since I've only joined the United Nations a little more than 6 months ago myself. I'm sure I could learn a lot from what you've learned over those last few days. I and we at the United Nations family hope that the kind of programs that you've gone through really provided you an insight, not just in how the UN works, but also that the result of that work should in the end benefit people in need anywhere around the world. We also hope that it showed you that in order to achieve global achievements, you need to spend time. You need to devote time to dialogue. You need to devote time sitting together, sorting out differences, and most importantly, finding common ground and building a consensus. We at the United Nations, we love this kind of program for all sorts of reasons. I mentioned the passion that you, the participants, bring to this program, which is infectious and contagious for us who are older, and we feed off the kind of energy that you are bringing with you, not just to this building, but to the entire United Nations program. The theme that you've chosen over this past week, Change Your World, is extremely timely because, as you know, the theme and the goal of the United Nations is exactly that, to create and work towards a better world, and through that to improve the lot and the fate of peoples wherever they may live. Like you, about half of the 7 billion individuals on this planet today are under 25 years of age. You are the largest generation ever of young people on this planet. This is why the United Nations is committed to partnering with you, with governments, with businesses, with teachers and with scholars, with activists and with civil society alike. We would like to find ways and means to empower youth, and we would like to get your say on how to bring about the kind of future all of us want. As the Secretary General told you in the message that he had shared with you, make your voices heard and drive political and social change. And wherever the Secretary General interacts with youth around the world, he calls on young people to make their contribution to that future, because the future is what is yours, and the world that you're working on will be your world. One young man already making his voice heard is here with us today. His name is Ahmad Alhindawi, and he's the newly appointed Envoy on Youth by the Secretary General. He's the first such UN envoy in the history of the United Nations. Since he joined us last month, Ahmed has hit the ground running, with more meetings than I think any one of us could imagine to squeeze into such a short period of time. It is my pleasure to, in a second, introduce Ahmed to you so that he can share some of his thoughts, some of his visions with you. However, before I end, I would like to stress again the importance of youth and the important role that all of you are playing. You are a force to be reckoned with, and the future really belongs to you. Thank you so much, and may I now request Ahmed to join us.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Under Secretary General, and it's a great pleasure to address you today. It's another youthful day in the United Nations. United Nations. Do you know why it's called United Nations? Everybody can have an answer for this question. For me, it's United Nations because it's mandated to unite nations based in human rights, development, peace and security, based in putting our world to make it more sustainable and to move it forward, to make a better place for us, for the generations to come. It's only one planet, and this planet has only one United Nations. What you are doing here is not only a simulation, it's an attempt to understand how it works, how our world is working today, and how you can be involved. My work is, as the United Nations Secretary General, Envoy for Youth. But I am also the envoy, the youth envoy to the United Nations. And you are all today are envoys in one way or another to understand the United Nations and to take the United Nations back home with your networks and with your organizations. It's not about changing the world. Changing the world is a nice slogan to think about. For me, it's about changing in the world to make it a better place for all of us. If you think of all innovators, all the great successes that we have witnessed in our history, it always started with a low-scale kind of innovations and projects, and it scaled up until it reached and changed our world. Facebook, if you think about it, it started just to link students in a community or a campus. That was the attempt only. Somebody who thought about changing something in his campus, and now he's changing all of our lives. We need you closer to the United Nations, and the Secretary General has made it clear that working with and for young people is a top priority for this organization. To do that, you need to be close to the United Nations, to align your work with the work of the United Nations. In fact, the number of workers in the United Nations, and people working in this organization, are less than those who are working for some of the fast food restaurants. So it's not about working in the organization, it's about working with the United Nations. It's about always trying to understand how the UN works, and this is what you are doing today, and to make your work always close to the United Nations. We are at a crossroad, as you know. 1,000 days left to the MDGs, and after the MDGs, we are discussing the post-development agenda. You know the word social contract, right? What we are discussing today is a development contract for our planet for 15 years. Your participation, your involvement is important, not only in continue meeting the Millennium Development Goals, but in putting a new rules for how the world should be in the next 15 years. I'm sure many of you hear about the consultation the United Nations is leading now to hear about your voices for the world you want. Do you know about the online campaign, The World We Want? Who knows about it? Well, then you should know. I think it's another way to be involved. But it's not only about asking you how the world should be in 15 years. It's about you envisaging your roles and position yourself in this development plan so you can be part of that implementation. The UN doors is open, and I believe it will continue to be open for young people to work with young people to make it a better place for all of us. Please feel always free to contact me or follow me on Twitter at Ahmad Alhindawi. And I will be happy always to continue, this conversation virtually and hopefully to meet some of you or all of you in other places. Again, welcome to the United Nations. This is your place, and what you are doing here is not only a simulation or just a model United Nations. It's a serious attempt to understand how the world works and then to put yourself in a place where you can make it a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.